first story. The rain was a relentless, drumming sorrow against the windows of the lake house. Inside, the fire hissed and spat, offering a meager warmth that did little to thaw the chill settled deep in Amelia's bones. She stirred the simmering chili, to send a hollow reminder of happier times, of Thanksgiving dinners brimming with laughter and family. Now, the laughter felt like a phantom limb, an ache for something irretrievably lost. She glanced at the framed photograph on the mantelpiece. Ben, her husband, his face beaming, arms slung around his younger brother, Liam. Their smiles were identical, the same crinkling around the eyes, the same easy confidence. Ben, the responsible one, the solid oak tree she'd leaned on for 10 years. Liam, the wandering artist, the free spirit, the one who always managed to light a spark in her despite her best efforts. It had started innocently enough. Liam had been visiting for the summer, needing a place to stay while he worked on a new series of paintings inspired by the lake. Ben, ever generous, had insisted. Amelia had welcomed him with forced cheer, trying to suppress the familiar flutter in her chest whenever he entered the room. She told herself it was just admiration. He was magnetic, a whirlwind of impulsive energy and artistic passion. He saw the world in vibrant colors, while Ben saw it in practicalities and responsibilities. Gradually, the admiration morphed into something more dangerous. Late-night talks over wine, discussing everything and nothing, the air thick with unspoken longing. A shared glance across the dinner table, a stolen touch in the kitchen while Ben was on the phone. She tried to stop it. She really had. Guilt gnawed at her, a constant, throbbing ache. Ben was a good man, a loyal husband. He deserved better. But the pull towards Liam was a force of nature, an irresistible current that swept her away. The affair had been a whirlwind of stolen moments, desperate embraces in the boathouse, hushed whispers under the cover of darkness. The guilt escalated, mingled with a terrifying, exhilarating sense of freedom. She was betraying the man she loved, yet she felt more alive than she had in years. Then Liam left. As suddenly as he'd arrived, he packed his brushes and canvases, offered a cryptic goodbye, and vanished into the summer haze. He hadn't said he was leaving for good, but he hadn't said he'd be back either. He left Amelia with a shattered heart and a soul full of regret. The truth had come out weeks later, in a crumpled and signed letter left in Liam's old room. Ben had found it. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by Amelia's sobs and Ben's choked gasps. He hadn't screamed, hadn't raged. His pain was quiet, a slow bleed that seemed to drain the life from him. Now, months later, they were in the lake house, trying to salvage what was left of their marriage. The air was thick with unspoken accusations, a constant reminder of her betrayal. The front door creaked open. Ben stood there, his face etched with weariness, his shoulders slumped. The firelight cast long shadows across his face, highlighting the lines of disappointment that had deepened around his eyes. He didn't speak. He simply walked to the mantelpiece and picked up the photograph. He stared at it for a long time, his fingers tracing the outlines of their smiling faces. Then, with a barely perceptible sigh, he turned and walked out the door, disappearing into the relentless rain. Amelia watched him go, the chili burning forgotten on the stove. The scent, once a symbol of warmth and family, now choked her with its bitter, acrid tang. She was alone, the architect of her own destruction, trapped in the wreckage of a life she'd carelessly dismantled. The rain continued its relentless drumming, a fitting soundtrack to the storm that raged within her. She knew, with a certainty that cut deeper than any blade, that Ben wasn't coming back. The lake house, once a sanctuary, was now a prison, haunted by the ghosts of a love that was lost and a trust that was irrevocably broken. And in the deafening silence, Amelia finally understood the full weight of her betrayal, a burden she would carry for the rest of her days. Second story. The champagne flute trembled in Clara's hand, its bubbly contents threatening to spill onto the pristine white lace of her dress. Around her, the reception buzzed with a joyous cacophony of laughter, clinking glasses, and the upbeat pulse of the band. It should have been perfect. It should have been the happiest day of her life. But Clara felt like she was drowning. She forced a smile as her mother squeezed her hand. "You look radiant, darling. Just radiant." He's a lucky man. He was. Ben was everything a woman could want: kind, intelligent, successful, and utterly devoted to her. He was everything she thought she wanted. Everything she convinced herself she wanted. The truth, a bitter pill she'd swallowed again and again in the lead up to this day, was that her heart belonged to someone else. Someone standing just a few feet away, his face etched with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Liam, Ben's best friend. His groomsman. And, as of a few hours ago, the man she'd irrevocably betrayed. The kiss had been electric, a desperate, impulsive collision of longing and regret in the dimly lit storage room behind the chapel. The pretense of hiding from the pre-wedding chaos had crumbled as quickly as her carefully constructed facade. One whispered, "I can't," and then she was in his arms, the world shrinking to the frantic beat of their hearts. Now, the memory of Liam's lips on hers was a brand, searing her conscience with every polite conversation, every obligatory dance with Ben. The guilt was a suffocating weight, threatening to crush her under the sheer magnitude of her deceit. She'd told herself it was a mistake, a moment of weakness fueled by pre-wedding jitters. She'd scrubbed at the memory, desperate to erase it, to compartmentalize it and lock it away forever. But every time she looked at Liam, she knew she was lying. He caught her eye across the room, his smile tight, almost pained. He lifted his glass in a mock toast. Clara looked away, her stomach twisting. The music swelled, and Ben pulled her closer for their first dance. As he twirled her around, his eyes filled with adoration, Clara felt a wave of nausea rise in her throat. She couldn't do this. She couldn't spend her life living a lie. The music faded, and Ben leaned in to whisper in her ear, "I love you, Clara, more than anything." The words, meant to be a sweet reassurance, were the final straw. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring Ben's face. She pulled away, shaking her head. I can't," she choked out, her voice barely a whisper. Ben frowned, confused. "What is it, darling?" Clara looked around the room, at the faces of her family, her friends, their friends. At Liam, standing frozen near the bar, his face pale. She took a deep breath, the air catching in her throat. "I can't do this, Ben. I can't marry you." A collective gasp swept through the room. The music stuttered and died. Silence descended, heavy and thick with disbelief. Ben's face crumpled. "What are you saying, Clara? What's going on?" Clara's gaze flickered toward Liam, then back to Ben's bewildered eyes. The truth, ugly and raw, spilled out. I kissed Liam. Before the ceremony. I think I'm in love with him." The silence shattered. Murmurs erupted, a chaotic wave of shock and outrage. Ben's face, already pale, turned ashen. His eyes, once brimming with love, were now filled with a bottomless pain that tore at Clara's soul. He stumbled back, as if struck. "Liam? My best friend." He turned to face Liam, his voice raw with betrayal. "Is this true?" Liam didn't deny it. He simply stood there, his head bowed, shame radiating from him like a toxic cloud. The room erupted in chaos. Clara could hear her mother crying, her father shouting at her, Ben's parents staring in horrified silence. But all she could see was Ben. His pain was a physical thing, a gaping wound that she had inflicted. Without a word, he turned and walked away, pushing through the crowd, leaving behind the shattered remnants of their wedding, their dreams, and their friendship. Clara watched him go, the lace of her dress suddenly feeling like a shroud. She had destroyed everything. Her relationship with Ben, her friendship with Liam, and perhaps most importantly, her own integrity. The weight of her choices crashed down on her, crushing her under its unbearable burden. The champagne flute slipped from her trembling hand, shattering on the floor. Just like her perfect day, just like her life. And as the music started again, a mournful, slow number, all Clara could hear was the echo of her own devastating mistake.